forgotten and paralyzed at the wedding, until the most powerful guest noticed her. Elara didn't even want to go. She told herself it was pointless, that no one would care, and honestly, she was right. The invitation had come in gold foil, elegant, perfect, just like Liana always was, Elara's former best friend, the same girl who once braided her hair during sleepovers, now sending a distant, obligatory invite, more like a reminder of what they used to be. She almost threw it away, but something inside her, stubbornness maybe, told her to show up, not for Liana, not for the guests, but for herself, to prove that she still existed, still mattered. The venue? A palace, literally. Crystal chandeliers, velvet chairs, tall mirrors that made everyone look flawless, except Elara. She couldn't even see herself in them, her wheelchair too low, the mirrors too high. She sat alone near the back, no reserved seat, no special welcome. Bridesmaids passed her like she was part of the furniture. Some stared, some whispered, one even laughed. No one said it out loud, but Elara felt it. Pity. Before we dive into this powerful story, take a second and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? I love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you're already feeling hooked, don't wait. Hit that subscribe button right now. I've got another beautiful story coming your way tomorrow, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. Now, let's get into it. Her dress was blue, soft silk. She'd spent hours choosing it, not because she wanted to impress anyone, but because it reminded her of who she was before. Before the accident, before the silence, before Liana left her behind. The music swelled. Guests clapped as the bride entered, radiant and glowing. Everyone stood, except Elara. She couldn't, and nobody offered to help. Her eyes welled up, but she blinked the tears away. She didn't want their sympathy. She wanted dignity. That's when he walked in, Damien Caulfield. They said he was worth over $6 billion, owned 5 companies, 6 jets, a heart made of ice. He wasn't even supposed to be here. He hated weddings. He hated people. But he came anyway. Rumor had it he was Liana's fiancé's cousin. No one knew why he accepted the invite. Maybe curiosity, maybe boredom, or maybe fate. The moment he entered, the entire room shifted. Waiters straightened up, guests whispered. Even Liana noticed and forced a fake smile. Damien didn't smile back. He didn't care about the flowers, or the music, or the bride. His eyes scanned the room once, then twice. Then he saw her. Elara. The woman no one else noticed. Sitting alone in a soft blue dress, eyes glassy, lips trembling. Not because she was weak, but because she'd spent every last drop of strength just being there. Damien walked past the cameras, past the bride, past the groom. He crossed the room like it belonged to him, and maybe it did. Then he stopped, right in front of Elara. She didn't look up first. Why would she? No one ever stopped for her. But then she heard the voice. Low, steady, kind. May I have this dance? Elara blinked. She thought she imagined it. She looked up, And for the first time in what felt like forever, someone didn't see the wheelchair. Someone saw her. Elara froze. Not because she was afraid, but because something about his voice didn't match the rumors. Damien Caulfield was supposed to be ruthless, cold, mechanical, but the man standing in front of her was calm, almost gentle, like he wasn't there to make a scene, like he meant every word. "May I have this dance?" he repeated, eyes never leaving hers. She looked around. People were staring now, whispering. Some gasped. A few even laughed. One of the bridesmaids scoffed. "Is this a joke?" Damien heard it. He turned and gave her a look that silenced the room, a look that said, "Not another word." Then he knelt down. Not out of pity, not for show. He bent low so Elara didn't have to crane her neck, so they could speak like equals. "I don't care what they think," he said quietly, "but I'd like to share this moment with you, if you'll let me." Elara felt something she hadn't felt in a long, long time. Choice. Not charity, not obligation, but an invitation to be seen. I can't dance," she whispered. "Then we'll redefine what dancing means," he replied. And with that, he wheeled her forward, onto the dance floor, right in the center, under the golden chandelier where the bride was supposed to have her first dance. The music changed. A slow instrumental began, the kind that tells a story without words. He placed his hand over hers, not forced, not awkward, just real. She didn't move much. She didn't have to. He circled around her, gently. They swayed together, her chair rolling slightly as he mirrored her movement. And in that moment, there was no disability, no pity, no audience. Just two souls moving in the same rhythm while the world watched stunned, silent, unsure whether to clap or cry. Liana watched from the head table, her painted smile cracking. This was her night, her wedding, her moment. And yet, somehow, all eyes were on Elara, the girl she left behind, the girl she thought would never matter again. After the dance, Damien wheeled Elara to the garden outside. The air was cold. The stars were out. "Why me?" Elara finally asked. "You could have danced with anyone. Someone whole. Someone easier." Damien didn't answer right away. He looked up at the sky. "My mother," he said softly. "She was in a wheelchair most of her life. Not because of an accident, just life. But she taught me that strength isn't about standing. It's about showing up when the world says you don't belong." Elara swallowed the lump in her throat. Nobody had ever said anything like that to her. Not since the crash, not since the betrayal. Damien turned to her. "You showed up, in front of people who ignored you, doubted you, mocked you. That's strength."
For the first time that night, Elara smiled. Not the polite smile she gave doctors and nurses, not the tight smile she forced at parties. A real smile. The kind that rises from somewhere deep, where hope lives. But beneath that smile, another feeling started to rise. One she didn't want to name yet. Could this be the beginning of something real? The garden was quiet. Only the soft hum of cicadas and the distant music from the ballroom filled the silence. Elara leaned back in her chair. Damien stood beside her, not rushing, not filling the air with small talk, just there. It felt safe. And Elara hadn't felt safe in years. "You said your mother was in a wheelchair," she said after a while. "Did people treat her the way they treat me?" Damien's jaw clenched. "Worse," he said. "She married into money, but money doesn't make people kind." He looked down at the floor, then up at her. "You'd be surprised how cruel the rich can be, especially to the ones who can't keep up." Elara nodded. She didn't need to be told. She lived it. "I lost her when I was 16, he added. "But she told me something before she died, something I never forgot." Elara raised her eyebrow gently. "What was it?" Damien turned fully to her now. She said, "Look for the person who shows up when you're not shining. That's the one who sees your soul." Ilara's breath caught in her chest. That quote would live in her forever. But while one connection was blooming quietly in the dark, inside, the storm was building. Liana's face was flushed. She could barely focus on the speeches, the toasts, or her new husband. All she saw was Elara. Elara in her spotlight. Elara who was supposed to stay broken. Elara who was supposed to disappear. One of the bridesmaids leaned over. "Why is Damien even talking to her? She's irrelevant." Liana didn't answer, but inside, she burned. Not out of love, not even out of jealousy. It was something darker. Fear. Later that night, after the guests had left and the lights dimmed, Damien asked the question Elara never thought anyone would care to ask. "Tell me what really happened." The crash. Elara stiffened. No one asked that anymore. They just assumed it was a tragic story, one that ended with pity and a charity gala. But Damien didn't look at her with pity. He looked ready. So she told him. 3 years ago, she began. Liana and I were driving back from a party. She was drinking. I begged her to let me drive. A pause. She laughed, called me boring, said it was just a few blocks. Her voice cracked then, but she pushed through. We crashed into a tree. She got a scratch on her forehead. I got this. Damien didn't speak. He didn't need to. Elara continued. She lied to the police, said I grabbed the wheel, said I panicked. Everyone believed her. Her family had money, lawyers. I had nothing. A long silence followed. Elara finally whispered, I lost more than my legs that night. I lost my voice, my truth. Damien leaned in. You didn't lose it. They just tried to bury it. And for the first time since the accident, Elara believed that maybe her voice wasn't gone after all. Damien confronts Liana. The cracks in the wedding facade begin to shatter. A deeper secret, bigger than the crash, is about to come out. Damien didn't sleep that night. He sat by his window in silence, Elara's story echoing in his mind like a song with no end. The crash. The lie.
The betrayal. And the way Liana stood there all evening, smiling like she'd never destroyed a life. Damien had seen frauds. He'd sued partners, dismantled fake charities, bought and gutted companies filled with lies. But this was different. This was personal. The wedding after-party was scheduled for noon. Brunch, laughter, champagne, fake smiles, and expensive apologies. Damien arrived early. Liana was in the garden again, snapping selfies, still wearing her silk robe like royalty. "We need to talk," he said. She didn't even turn around. "About what? You ditching the reception to play charity prince?" "About Elara." That made her turn. Fast. "Let me guess," Liana said. "She gave you her sob story?" Damien didn't blink. "She told me about the crash. About what really happened." Liana's jaw clenched, but her voice stayed smooth. "You're seriously believing her? Damien, she's always been dramatic." He stepped closer. "I've seen dramatic. That wasn't it. That was trauma. That was pain she's been carrying for you." Liana rolled her eyes. "You don't know her like I do." "No," he said coldly. "But I know liars, and I can smell one a mile away." That's when Liana's tone changed. She dropped the sweetness, the fake innocence. "Be careful," she said, her voice flat now. "You start asking too many questions, and you might not like what you find." Damien tilted his head. "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning," she replied. "Walk away. Let this go. She's not worth it." But Damien wasn't listening anymore, because something else had just clicked. A detail Elara hadn't even mentioned. A clue buried under all the guilt. "Wait," he said, eyes narrowing. "You told the police she grabbed the wheel. But the passenger side airbags didn't deploy. Only the driver's did." Liana's face paled instantly. That detail wasn't public. Only someone with access to the sealed report would know that. "You read the case file?" she whispered, suddenly breathless. "No," Damien said, steady and cold. "I bought it." Liana's lips parted, but no words came. Damien stepped back, his voice like stone. "Your lies are over. You don't get to rewrite history anymore." Later that day, Elara was rereading a letter when she heard the knock. Damien stood in the doorway. No bodyguards, no suit, just him. He didn't say hello. He simply walked in and placed a folder in her lap. "It's yours now," he said. "What is it?" she asked, confused. "The full report. Photos, evidence, witnesses, and my statement." "Statement?" Damien nodded. "I'm going public. Telling the press what really happened, and I'm backing you up." Elara stared at him, not because she doubted his power, but because, for the first time in years, someone was fighting for her. She looked up, tears in her eyes. "Why are you doing this?" Damien leaned in, his voice barely a whisper. "Because I believe in justice. And because I believe in you." And just like that, Damien went public. Liana's perfect image began to crumble. But Elara now stood at a crossroads. She had to choose revenge or redemption. It was never about attention. Elara had never dreamed of headlines. She didn't want fame or followers or people chanting her name. All she had ever wanted was the truth. And now, the truth was about to step into the light. The room was packed. Cameras lined the back wall. Reporters sat in tight rows, whispering, guessing, adjusting microphones. Why is Damien Caulfield calling a press conference? Is it a new merger? Did someone die? No one had any idea what was coming. Then he walked in. Damien. No tie, no press team, just a black suit and fire in his eyes. He stood at the podium, scanned the room, and said 6 words that silenced the world. I'm here to tell the truth. Elara wasn't there. She didn't want to be. This was Damien's stage now. His choice. His conviction. But she watched it from her apartment, hands trembling around a cup of tea that had gone cold hours ago. 3 years ago, Damien said into the mic, a young woman named Elara James was involved in a car accident. The official report claimed she caused it, that she panicked, that she grabbed the wheel. He paused. That was a lie. She wasn't driving. She was the passenger. The real driver, Liana Moore, lied to the police, paid off witnesses, silenced the truth. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward, hungry. And why am I telling you this? Because the woman they tried to bury is stronger than any of them. Elara's hand covered her mouth. Her eyes flooded. I'm funding her legal team. We've reopened the investigation, and I stand by her every step of the way. He ended the speech without a smile, without a bow. Just truth and silence and power. Within minutes, the video was everywhere. #Justice for Elara, #The Real Crash, #Damien Caulfield Speaks. People who had never heard her name were now sharing it like a song stuck in their heads. Blogs, podcasts, talk shows. Who is Elara James? The paralyzed woman who took down a dynasty. And somewhere, in a honeymoon suite that no longer felt like paradise, Liana was screaming into a phone, I told you to bury it, bury her. But it was too late. The storm had already broken. 2 days later, Damien visited Elara again. He found her on the rooftop of her building, blanket over her legs, watching the city breathe below. You did it. You lit the fire. You're the one who's been carrying the matches, he said gently. She turned to face him. There was something different in her eyes now. Not sadness, not fear. Resolve. Everyone's expecting me to sue, to press charges, to drag her name through the mud. Damien nodded. They're expecting war. But maybe I don't want war. Maybe I just want peace. He didn't try to sway her. He only asked one question. What would give you your power back? Elara thought for a long time. Then she smiled. Forgiving her. On my terms, in my voice, when she least expects it. And in that moment, Damien realized something. Elara wasn't just brave. She wasn't just a survivor. She was unstoppable. The emotional turning point. A private breakthrough. A scene that will shatter expectations and leave the audience in awe. It had been 1,042 days since Elara last stood on her own feet. Not that anyone was counting. Not the doctors, not her former friends, not the world that moved too fast to notice her sitting still. But she was counting. Every morning, every sleepless night, every time someone looked through her, not at her. She remembered the moment her legs stopped working. But what she never forgot was how her spirit almost followed. No media, no reporters, not Damien, just her and her reflection. She gripped the parallel bars, sweat clinging to her forehead. "Let's just try for 5 seconds," her therapist said softly. "You don't have to impress anyone." Elara nodded. She wasn't doing it to impress. She was doing it to reclaim herself. One foot shifted. It was barely a nudge, but it was movement. The next foot followed. Her arms trembled, her jaw clenched. Tears welled, but she stayed standing. 5 seconds. Then 10. Then 12. She didn't fall. And in that silent, sterile room, without an audience, without applause, Elara walked 2 steps, and then she let herself cry. Damien arrived with takeout. Same as every Tuesday. "You look taller," he joked. Elara didn't respond with words. She pushed herself up, slowly, deliberately, using her cane, her legs shaking beneath her. Damien froze, mouth parted, eyes wide. You're walking," she said, breathless but smiling. "When did this happen?" "This morning." "Why didn't you call me?" "Because," she whispered, stepping forward. "This was a step I had to take alone." Damien didn't speak, didn't cry, didn't cheer. He just opened his arms, and she fell into them. Not weakly, but willingly. 2 souls. Not broken, not rescued. Just found. For the first time in years, Elara wasn't the girl in the chair, or the victim, or the whisper at the edge of a wedding. She was her own miracle. A week later, Elara received a letter, no return address, but she knew the handwriting. Liana. She sat with it for an hour before opening it, and when she finally did, the words were as expected. "I'm sorry." 2 pages of it. Explanations, excuses, regret, but no ownership, no real apology. Elara didn't finish reading it. She didn't need to. She picked up a pen, wrote 1 line on the back, and mailed it back. "I forgive you, but I'll never be invisible again." That was all. That was everything. Then came Damien's invitation to a high society gala, but something about it felt different. The envelope arrived in silver, sealed with the Caulfield family crest. Not an email, not a text, a handwritten card. Elegant, formal, unexpected. Inside it read, "Annual Caulfield Foundation Auction, benefiting trauma recovery centers worldwide." Elara stared at it for a long time. Her name written in cursive looked strange, like it belonged there, and didn't. She hadn't gone to a public event since that wedding, but something inside her whispered, "Go." Not to be seen, but to be unshakable. The night of the gala, the ballroom was even bigger than the wedding venue. All glass walls and a chandelier that shimmered like the stars were applauding. Elara entered slowly, cane in hand, dress flowing behind her like waves. No wheelchair, no shadows, just strength. And this time, people looked, not with pity, not with whispers, but with awe. Damien met her at the entrance, not in a tuxedo, but in a tailored navy suit with no tie. His version of rebellion. "You're late." He smiled. "You're overdressed," she teased. He offered his arm. She took it. Inside, the auction was already underway. Art, jewels, private islands. Elara watched as millions changed hands with subtle nods. It was a different universe, a place where power wasn't spoken, it was simply assumed. Damien guided her to a balcony overlooking the crowd. From there, everything felt quieter, smaller, like it couldn't touch her. "I want you to see something," he said. He pointed toward the stage. A canvas was being wheeled out, a painting of a lone figure standing at the edge of a cliff. "It's called Still Standing," he told her. "I bought it 5 years ago." "Why?" "Because it reminded me of someone I hadn't met yet." Elara turned to him, breath caught in her throat. Someone who would fall, break, bleed, but still stand anyway. The bidding began. 100,000, 250, 500,000. Damien didn't move. Elara leaned in. "Aren't you bidding?" He shook his head gently. "No, I already gave it to someone." She blinked. "You're donating it." "I'm giving it to you." And then a spotlight hit the balcony. The auctioneer raised his hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce the inspiration behind tonight's final piece, Miss Elara James." The crowd turned. Gasps, murmurs, phones lifted. Elara's heart pounded. Damien leaned in and whispered, "You don't owe them your story, but you deserve your stage." Later, needing a moment alone, Elara stepped backstage for air. That's when she saw her. Liana. In the shadows, dressed in black, not a guest, just there, watching. "What are you doing here?" Elara asked, voice calm but steady. Liana stepped forward, eyes glassy, lip trembling. "I came to see if it's real." "If what's real?" "You." Liana said softly, "This transformation. I don't even recognize you." Elara's jaw tightened. "Maybe you never knew me in the first place." A long pause. "I didn't come to ruin anything. I needed to see what surviving looks like." Elara nodded. "Then look closely, because this is what rising from the ashes really looks like." The painting sold for $2.1 million, and part of the proceeds went to a foundation Elara hadn't even known Damien had created in her name, the Elara Fund, for every person who's ever been silenced and told they don't belong. She couldn't speak, so she didn't. She simply placed her hand over his, and for once, it felt like the world had nothing left to take from her, only more to give. Elara discovers that someone she trusted has been leaking her private life to the media, and the trail leads to someone she never suspected. Trust is a fragile thing. Like glass, beautiful, clear, but easy to shatter. Elara had rebuilt so much since the wedding night. New strength, new hope, new purpose. But sometimes the hardest battles come not from strangers, but from those closest to us. Late one night in her apartment, Elara's phone buzzed again and again. Messages, emails, notifications. At first she ignored them, but soon the whispers started. Who is Elara James really? Is she hiding something? Sources say her story doesn't add up. The press wasn't digging for truth anymore. They were digging for dirt. Someone was feeding them. The next morning, in Damien's office, he sat behind his massive desk, fingers steepled. "It's a leak," he said quietly. "Someone close to you." Elara's heart dropped. She thought back. Friends she trusted, confidants she'd opened up to, even family. Was one of them betraying her? She needed answers, so she invited a small group of people from her circle to a private dinner. Among them, her longtime caregiver, a trusted lawyer, and someone she once considered family, her cousin, Marissa. The evening started with laughter and memories, but with every passing minute, the tension thickened. Finally, Elara stood. "Someone here has been feeding lies to the press. Someone who wanted to see me fall," she said softly. Silence. Marissa's face went pale. Her hands trembled. Elara looked straight at her cousin. "Why?" Marissa's voice broke. "I was scared. Scared you'd take everything away from me." Elara's voice dropped to a whisper. "What?" "The family business," Marissa confessed. I thought if I stopped you, maybe I could keep my place." Betrayal cut deeper than any accident, deeper than any lie. But Elara knew something. This was a test, a challenge, and she was ready. She took a deep breath. She said, "Thank you for telling the truth. But from now on, I only trust those who fight with me, not against me." That night, Elara began a new chapter, one where betrayal was no longer a weakness, but a fuel. But trust wasn't easy for Damien either. Behind his cold exterior, behind the billionaire empire and the piercing gaze, lay a past buried deep, one he had never shared. In his study, lit only by a single desk lamp, Damien sat across from Elara. The silence between them was heavy. "There's something I've never told you," he said finally, voice low. Elara looked up, curiosity and caution mingling in her eyes. "Before my mother?" He paused, swallowing hard. "She was paralyzed, yes, but there was more." "What do you mean?" she asked softly. Damien took a breath. "When she got sick, my father, he left us. The man who built our fortune. The man everyone respected. He couldn't handle her condition. Left me to watch her suffer." His voice cracked. "That's why I hate weakness. Why I buried my emotions so deep. I built walls to protect myself. Walls that almost destroyed me." Elara reached out and took his hand. "You're not weak. You're human." He looked into her eyes, vulnerability shining through the billionaire mask. "Meeting you, seeing your strength, it forced me to confront my own. I thought I was alone in this fight, but I'm not." In that moment, two broken souls found peace in each other, not because their scars matched, but because their hearts beat in sync. Damien and Elara weren't perfect. They had pasts, pain, secrets, but together they began writing a new story, one not defined by tragedy or betrayal, but by hope, love, and resilience. And then came the moment Elara never thought she'd face, an unexpected return to the place where it all began, the ballroom where she was once invisible. The chandeliers sparkled just as brightly as they had the night she was forgotten. But this time, the air felt different, charged with anticipation, with change, with power. Elara arrived, not in a wheelchair, but standing tall, wearing a gown that caught the light like a beacon, eyes sharp, smile confident. The crowd parted, whispers hushed. Everyone remembered her, but no one dared ignore her. At her side was Damien, no longer a distant guardian, but a partner, an equal. The bride that evening? None other than Liana. But this wasn't the same wedding. This was a new chapter. Elara took the microphone, her voice clear, steady, and strong, echoed through the ballroom. 3 years ago, I was invisible, forgotten in this very room, paralyzed not just in body, but in spirit. She paused, letting the silence land like thunder. Tonight, I stand before you as proof that no darkness can hold back the light. The crowd erupted into applause, not out of pity, but out of respect. Liana's face was unreadable, but the silence between them said everything. No words needed. Later, under the night sky, away from the noise, Damien smiled. "Ready for the next step?" Elara nodded. Together. And for the first time in years, the past felt like a distant shadow, because she was finally free. The journey from forgotten to fearless wasn't easy. It was paved with pain, with heartbreak, with moments when Elara wanted to give up. But every step she took, whether in a wheelchair or on her own 2 feet, was a victory. Damien stayed by her side, not as a savior, but as a teammate. Together, they faced the past and built a future stronger than either could alone. Elara's story became more than just a tale of survival. It became a beacon for anyone who's ever been silenced, invisible, or underestimated. She learned that true power isn't in wealth, fame, or status. It's in the courage to show up when no one's watching, in the strength to forgive without forgetting, in the grace to rise again and again until you own your story. And now, as the sun rises on a new day, Elara stands tall, not just as a woman who was once forgotten, but as the author of her own destiny. Because sometimes the greatest love story is the one you write for yourself. Thank you for listening. And if Elara's journey moved you, remember, your story matters too.